Some of the things I'm about to tell you guys in this video, you couldn't have waterboarded out of me a year ago. Batman himself wouldn't have been able to get this information out of me because this is something that I had been embarrassed about for a long time. But now I'm not. And I know that my experience and my story could help some people. So here we go. Rip my digital footprint. I know some people are going to be watching this and they'll be like, oh, bro, this isn't really that big of a deal for me. And for some people, it's not. And something I'm realizing is that how you view this habit will impact how it makes you feel. So once you start to feel ashamed about it, it's over for you, bro. So for me, my self image, my confidence, the way that I viewed women, it all just got worse because of this habit. Some people, that's not the case. They have no problem cranking their shit. It has no impact on their self image. Like for me, I think some of the shame probably comes from, growing up as a Catholic, going to a Catholic school where they just stopped beating the dog shit out of the students with rulers like a few years before I got there. But for forever, I felt embarrassed about this. But what makes me feel less embarrassed now is that, bro, I was 12 years old when I was introduced to this shit. 12. I don't like to victim max, but if you're like me and that's around the time that you were introduced to this, like when you were an actual child, you were a victim, dude. Like I was brainwashed years before actually having my first real relationship with a woman. And I don't want to moralize this, pretend like I'm a better person because I stopped watching. No, because this isn't a habit that if you do it, like it means you're a bad or evil person. That helps nobody and it just creates even more shame. Like there's a reason that so many people watch this shit and nobody talks about this, right? They put internet on one of these isolated islands, one of these uncontacted tribes that's been disconnected from the modern world. They gave them internet with Starlink. The first thing that these guys did was goon. Like it takes advantage of our natural need to reproduce. And when that gets planted in your head at 12 years old, like I'm sorry, you're not evil because of that. You have been taken advantage of. So I want to share what happened to me. So for years, I thought that this was just a normal habit that everyone had. That's the brainwashing. It's like, oh, everyone does it. It's free. It's easy. It's chill, bro. Plus, when I started to get older, I was juggling way worse addictions, and I didn't even realize that this was an addiction yet. And then I'll never forget when this first got on my radar. And again, I can't believe I'm sharing this on the internet. When I was around 22, I had this crush on this girl forever, like since we were kids. And finally, I started going out with her. We had fun. Eventually, things escalated, and I got my shot, if you know what I mean. And I airballed that shit. Don't make me spell it out. Like, I couldn't perform, and that was soul crushing to me. Like, to be honest, I've never felt more humiliated, especially because I really liked this girl. So that's when I realized my brain got used to a higher level of stimulation of novelty than it was getting from real life. So this is how it first hit my radar. Like, yo, I need to stop this. So I stopped. And it wasn't until then that I realized, like, oh shit, this is a bigger problem than I thought it was. So what happens when you try to quit? So quitting smoking, quitting nicotine was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But yeah, this was somehow harder. Like if I had 10 subs for every time I said, all right, this is my last time doing this shit, I'd be Mr. Beast, we'll just say that. So when I first stopped doing it, after about 2 days, I started to feel uneasy, like a bunch of intrusive thoughts started popping up. But I was using my willpower and saying, there's no shot I'm doing it. Because that embarrassment that I had felt from what happened with that girl that I really liked, that was a strong enough motivator to be disciplined. So a couple more days go by and I start to notice, I'm like, shit, I feel good. I start to feel like a king. It was like my confidence was up, my energy was up. I was really pushing more weight in the gym. It turns out when you're not blowing your stack every single day, you have more energy, more drive to do shit. And I love that feeling because it's like you can't just sit there with this extra energy because you'll just be a pissed off hornball. You have to put it somewhere, right? And this isn't really bro science. If you look it up, like your testosterone spikes short term when you do this. And part of this brainwashing that they got my ass with at 12 years old was this idea that I need to be constantly releasing, if you know what I mean. Like it's something I need, like food and water. And that's just not true. And to be honest, like I've gone a long time retaining just fully. I think the longest I did was 50 days just using willpower. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it's crazy, like the roller coaster of emotions that you feel doing this, and eventually you flatline. But I learned a lot. Like to this day, I cannot get over how much my brain changes when I do this. The way that I was looking at the entire world changed. I'm not even joking. Like at times, it literally felt like life itself was returning to me. This massive dopamine blast was no longer there to numb me. You know, I wasn't getting that anymore. So the beauty of life, dude, it felt was getting turned up. And it was like not only did I find myself appreciating the beauty of women more, but the beauty of everything else. Music, shows, books, nature. All of a sudden I'm appreciating trees and shit. The first time I ever felt this feeling, I was like, what an idiot I am for not doing this earlier. Like, I don't know how else to describe it besides life felt brighter. And something else I was noticing, and again, this is back when I was 22, was that I would go on these long periods of abstaining, and women started giving me more attention, which I'm gonna get to why I think this is in a bit, but that alone at the time was enough for me to be like, all right, there's something here. I gotta continue down this path, right? So, despite all those benefits that I just listed, the human brain is a bitch, bro. Despite how good I felt, it didn't matter because in the back of my mind, I was convinced that I was depriving myself of something that I enjoyed. Doing what I was doing required mad discipline, like it was straight willpower. And anytime I would see, you know, a certain picture, even an ad, like, bro, you don't realize until you take a step back how sexualized every part of society is these days. Instagram and Twitter have turned into, you know, sites on their own. So in order for me to pull this off, I had to delete all social media. It wasn't even a choice. Because, bro, it's all novelty. It all goes back to novelty. I mean, some girls that I actually know in real life, their posts would be enough to trigger my ass. You know, like they'll leave nothing up to the imagination sometimes on Instagram. And these are just regular girls. Like there's no links or anything. They're just social media posts, just for the love of the game, I guess. So I would see things like these, or even trailers or movies or shows, and it would be frustrating. It would be like this reminder of what I'm missing out. And the brain, it lies to itself. And that's the problem with this approach and why it doesn't work long term. You drive yourself crazy, bro. Like after a certain point, the benefits flatline. And if anything, I would notice like my anxiety would start to go up. My confidence would be all over the place. And it was like my brain would either start avoiding any sexual thoughts at all, or the sexual thoughts would be so loud that it was hard for me to focus on other shit. So either way, I would go, what's the point of this? Why am I putting myself through this torture? So I would start to justify it, and then I would give in, and then the shame would come back even harder. And now, because I've seen the benefits, I have to try again. And it would be over and over and over. And because of this, my confidence was all over the place. Using willpower doesn't work long term. And what type of life is this where you have to avoid certain thoughts and move around? Every time you see a pretty girl, you're like triggered. Like, that's ass, and that's no way to live life. And like I said, you know, I'll call it corn problem. There's no way this is getting monetized, but whatever. It doesn't impact some people, which is cool. It's like, whatever. But at this point, I was in too deep. I knew for a fact it was making my life worse. And at the same time, I knew I couldn't stop viewing it as something I was depriving myself of, something I was missing out on by cutting off. So this thought process cooked me for a few years of my life, to be honest. And it wasn't until I changed my view, you know, of what this shit really is, which is poison, that I was able to fix this. Because it was like, okay, each time I drink this poison, it does more and more damage. It becomes harder and harder to reverse that damage. So I stopped viewing it as this sacrifice that I was making, but instead, it's just like I'm no longer doing something that's actively hurting me. One of my favorite things about this addiction, it's like no one wants to admit that they have a problem with it, but you look at the research and the problems that we're facing as a society, and you realize the majority of the world is using it. For forever, this has been a problem that's cooked men, but now women are getting cooked too, and their shit is somehow more freaked out than ours. They're reading books about centaurs and shit. The percentage of women getting addicted is going up fast. And it's some weird shit from what I've heard. But I can't really speak on that. But it's this thing that the majority of people are using. But if you bring it up and say, you know, I think this shit might be bad for me, people brush it off so quick. People are so quick to say they don't have a problem with it. And that's fine. Maybe you don't. But the way I view it, it's like, especially as someone with an addictive personality, it's like, all right, if you don't have a problem with it, stop doing it then. Like, why are you still doing it? I've been curious about this for a while, so like I'll be talking to some of my friends about it and they'll clown me. They're like, bro, what are you talking about? You're sus, bro. But it's like, if you could go back in time to the first time you ever got introduced to it, when one of your little gooner friends was like, yo, bro, you got to see this, and you could stop the little you from looking at it for the first time, would you? It's like, I feel like pretty much everyone would say yes to that. It was once I started to view it this way that things shifted for me, because lust is lust. Lust is normal. You see heads, they do the nofap thing and they connect everything in life to the fact that they aren't releasing. Like, it gives them superpowers. And I understand it, because like in the short term, if you hate where your life is at, it might be worth trying temporarily, because I learned a lot about myself for sure. But again, long term, it's not the move. Releasing isn't the problem. Sex is something that human beings were put on this earth to do, to reproduce. Cavemen were releasing thousands of years ago. The important thing about this whole topic for me, and why I feel like I need to make this video, it's destroying the connection between lust and gooning, okay? They're different. Lust and unlimited novelty should not be connected. That's the brainwashing, and that's literally what's cooking our entire generation. It's the supernormal stimuli, whatever. It's the novelty. That's doing the damage. So I made this connection when I was like 12 years old that I now need to be conscious of and reverse. This stuff has hijacked our natural biological need as humans to reproduce. It's hijacking it and using it against us. And, you know, people go, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. But to me, you know, I sit back, I'm like, how am I supposed to maintain a healthy long-term relationship with anyone if my brain is still trying to get novelty, if I'm still conditioning myself for new. And if you look at these companies today, companies like Blue Chew, there's another one, I think it's called Roman, they're marketing ED pills to young dudes. Like, we should not need these pills in our 20s and 30s. The fact that there's even a market for this shit, that's all the evidence you need to know. So once I started to view this for what it really was, which is this fat L that's taking the color out of my life every time I use it, all of a sudden, I don't really need willpower to stop. It just becomes logical. You have to make this switch from viewing it as something that you're missing out on to viewing it as something that you're benefiting from by not using it. That's the only way you can beat this shit. It's beat the brainwashing. And that's when the real benefits come in. You know, I've seen videos talk about, countless videos talk about what happens when you do this. And it's like, yeah, like a bunch of women just start noticing you. All of a sudden you get way more action. And like, look, there's truth there. And I'd be lying, like I said, if that wasn't a big part of the reason when I first started coming to this realization in college that I was like, yo, this is the move. There is truth there, and I'll get to why. But listen, I think anyone who says this is the main benefit, in my opinion, is still in the gooner mindset. To me, the real benefit is shedding that gooner mindset that they planted in my head at 12 years old. You know, so that when I go on a date and I don't hit a home run, I'm not tweaking about that when I get home. So that the way that I view women changes. The way I view sex changes. For the first time in my adult life, it's like I have some control over this little demon that's been on my shoulder since I was a kid. If you can free yourself of this mindset, you will be ahead of so many people in this world. There are heads spending thousands of dollars at the club as we speak, as I speak right now, not because they want to, because of this mindset. Someone is going through the messiest, most expensive divorce right now because of this mindset. Someone's ass just got arrested somewhere because of this mindset. You guys remember this guy? Died by goon because of this mindset. There is a reason this shit is free, man, because you're paying with your own life, with your soul. It being so easy to partake in and getting introduced at such a young age to guys, it's this huge nerf. It's this huge potential limiter. You think Leonardo da Vinci could have done what he did if he was a gooner? Imagine George Washington as a gooner. We would have lost that war for sure. He'd be like, nah, like, let's just chill today. We'll worry about the British tomorrow. I'm kind of tired today. Like, there's an energy that we all have as humans inside of us that's probably motivated the creation of 70%, 75% of the shit that you see around you right now. Yet, they call you crazy for being like, maybe we should view this energy as something special, something not to just give away every day for free. I can't pretend like I know exactly what it is. I just know that it slowly chips away and creates complacency. I think the worst addictions are the ones that you can hide. They don't seem like they're having a negative impact until you look back 10 years later down the line and it hits you in the face. A lot of times with addictions, for me, what always helps is like you think about how much time you're wasting on them, on whatever it is that you're addicted to. And, time spent gooning, or TSG, we'll call it, it's not a lot unless you're in super deep. It's not something that takes a long time, and it's very easy to hide. But what about TSGIN, time spent in gooner mindset, right? If you can shed even a bit of this mindset, your attention, your focus on the things that matter in life, your path, your life becomes clear. And this is just me speaking from experience. And, another benefit, I feel like I'm no longer crippled, disabled by a girl just because, she's super attractive. Because you stop putting all this value onto just physical beauty. And it's not like I'm a monk now. Like, I still see a pretty girl, I'm like, whoa. But now it's almost like that's not enough. I value more than that, and I value myself more too. You look at something like hookup culture, which I was raised in my opinion, it's a product of all this brainwashing that I'm talking about. And now it just straight up, it doesn't appeal to me as much as it used to, right? No one's perfect, people make mistakes, but one night stands, it's like you're basically just gooning with another person. Like that clarity that comes rushing to you after you hook up with someone that you shouldn't have, that feeling, like, oh, that wasn't right. That feeling hits you for a reason. Sex is not bad, but once you realize you don't need it like you need food and water, like you don't need it like you thought you did, you start to have more control of urges, and I view it differently now. I like it's something special, which it is. I don't want to say that I value my seed more because that's just a crazy thing to say, but I just did. I do. And it ties into my self-worth for me. So without even realizing it, my standards have gone up, which I think translates, I'm not a squirrel fiending for a nut all the time. Imagine being a girl and picking a guy is like picking a place to work. So guys are like job applications, but every single job you apply to, they'll give it to you without even an interview. They're just like, can you please start tomorrow? We'll pay you whatever you want. But one company says, no, we need to interview you a few times first, and then we'll decide if it's a good fit. Which company do you think just psychologically she would value more? And it would be the same, roles reversed. Like, that's how psychology works. So that's part of the reason I think naturally female attraction goes up whenever you stop doing this, especially if it's something that makes you feel like shit and ashamed. Now I can literally see, sometimes I can look at someone and tell that they're still struggling with this. Like, it's visible when you struggle with this shit, I swear, for some people. And women somehow have an even better radar for noticing it. It's hard to explain these things with facts and stats, but it almost doesn't need to be explained. The way that you view women will change. The way that you view yourself will change. And that will make a huge difference in how you are perceived. But again, this isn't the motivator for me. The motivator for me was getting control back, getting rid of this brainwashing, this addiction to novelty. So if anyone is thinking about trying this, the first 2 weeks will be the toughest. Even when you like switch that mindset of this is something that's bad for me, you still have to let your brain adjust to these lower levels of dopamine. And it takes about 2 weeks. It's a temporary feeling. It'll just be like, nothing is hitting right now. But the longer you go without it, the easier it becomes. And anytime an urge pops up, which they will, you just remind yourself how lucky you are not to be controlled by this poison anymore. And you can't do this or at least I couldn't until I convinced myself the shit was poison. And I mentioned this earlier, you will feel energy increasing in your body. Like, not on some guru shit, it's just like what happens. And the only way that you can pull this off is redirecting that energy, whether that's into the gym, into learning a new skill, a hobby, creating. Like, you need to redirect this new energy, or else you're just gonna be frustrated and pissed off all the time. I feel like now is just the best time to stop before we get to this point of no return with AI, because with AI, novelty is now in the hands of the gooner, you know? Whatever crazy shit that you can think of, you can now watch, which is dark. I had a thumbnail for one of my videos. I was like, all right, I used Grok to generate me a bottle girl. I wanted the sign to say something. And dude, I was like, instantly was like, holy shit, Grok, like I can't post this on YouTube. Like, you really just generated me that. And that's when I realized, like, oh my God, Grok can generate you whatever you ask for. So if you think about where this is heading, you know, my generation got cooked. I got cooked just by the real stuff. It was already way too much novelty, way too much stimulation. But that's all about to get way worse, meaning that healthy sexual relationships will continue to become less and less appealing, and a bunch of us are going to die alone. No, I shouldn't say that. It sounds dark, but it is dark. And I do think that there is hope, bro. Like, it's why I'm making this video. A lot of guys are giving up on dating and finding a woman, and I think that, you know, I get it. Shit is tough out here, tougher than ever, but it's just not the move. And that move is only possible if you're using corn as a crutch. Because if you're a human, dude, like, you, it's built into you to reproduce, to mate. So if you're gonna give up on that, go become a priest, fine. But if you're gonna give up on that just to goon instead, like, that's something that you're gonna regret. It 100% makes your motivation to go out there and eat shit dating lowered, because you have a cop out. What's easier? Think about it. Getting in good shape, working on yourself, learning shit, reading books, getting to a bag, getting out of your comfort zone, doing all of that and still having to learn how to deal with rejection, or just firing up Grok and just cranking your shit. You know, it's not even close. But something I keep running into, no matter if it's the gym or my YouTube channel or the content I'm consuming, is that the easiest choices to make life harder. And the hardest choices to make life easier. The easy, free shit is what really costs us the most. I talked about in my last video how it's so easy to ride at home right now. Not only is it easy, but it's free and almost seems logical. This is the number one, corn is the number one piece in that puzzle. Life is about eating shit, failing, be uncomfortable, learning, improving. It's not about being complacent and giving up. It's just not. I like to think I'm a practical guy. Some things you just can't explain with facts and stats, and quitting corn is one of them. This is one of those things that I can say confidently, my life is so much better without. And it's this thing that's causing a lot more problems than people are willing to admit. And I'm not saying any of this to flex or like I'm better than you morally because I stopped. I don't believe in that at all. I'm saying this because we are being nerfed, bro. And nobody wants to talk about it. So I guess I'll start the conversation. I'm going to link this free little book I read when I learned a lot of what I talked about today about beating this. It's called The Easy Peasy Method. I'll put it in the description. This wasn't an easy video to make, to be honest. Like, I feel like I'm kind of crossing this point of no return, sharing some of this stuff on the internet. But at the end of the day, like, I don't care. This is the right thing to do. And if it can help one person, then it was worth it. So thank you so much for watching. All the love recently. Peace.